For the others, let me introduce myself, Stan Eberlin. My mom and dad were Harry and Phoebe, and they had a dress store named Annette.
Okay.
So there are other names that I see in the newsletter that I remember, but I left Kimberley when I was 12 in 1954.
Janna Piet.
So I'm not sure who I'm looking at now.
Ek is Sylvia.
Sorry, please repeat.
Ek is Sylvia.
Sylvia. Okay.
Where is Sylvia? Where is Sylvia?
Can you not see me?
No.
No.
Yeah.
I don't know how to switch on.
You have to
Get
go
your
to
video.
the bottom left. It says start video.
So what do? I pressed it,
Click it.
nothing's happened.
Click it so that the red line goes away.
Darcy.
Yeah, there you are.
There we go.
Well done.
You are.
Here
Now-
I am. Hello, everybody.
No.
Hello.
So
I see there's a relative of mine there. Hilary Joachim.
No, it's Hirsch. It's
Hirsch!
Hirsch.
Hirsch! Oh, no!
Sylvia.
Yes!
Yes, hi. Hi, Sylvia.
How are you?
Hi,
Where are you?
in Pretoria.
Oh, okay. Still there. Okay.
and where are you? Now, you haven't got your name on your screen. I don't know how you get it on, but it would be
I don't know either. Don't ask me. This is the first time I've done this.
Well, you're doing pretty well. You're doing
Geraldine
pretty
and I
well.
think you've been living on Zoom for the last 12 months, especially Geraldine.
Yeah. Hello. Oh, look, there is Natalie Sussman
Hello.
Sussman.
And-
Wow.
and Laura.
Wow.
Yes,
Gee.
hi.
Wow. Hi.
There you are, coming in. And Marvin Cohen.
Yes, I'm actually just a ring-in. I was at boarding school in Kimberley for 5 years, and I have very fond memories of those 5 years in Kimberley. The David family were exceptionally hospitable to us boarders, and through them we met the Hotz family, Pam and Shelley, and some of my matric contemporaries I left in 1964. It was David Goldberg, Les Brenner, Louis Averbach.
Well, Marvin, I'm Les Brenner's sister.
Ah, okay. He and I did matric in the same year, 1964.
Yes, and I think I was the same age as Farrell.
Oh, that's my brother in Cape Town, yes. But
Yes. Is he still in
I
Cape
remember
Town?
going to the girls' I danced with Pearlie Goldenbaum and to shul every Saturday morning because I was the only Cohen that attended on a Saturday. So if I wasn't there, they let me know pretty quickly that I should have been there. And other memories are plenty of Kimberley and the beautiful shul. We were back in 2017 and Barney Hurwitz opened the shul for us and we had a look around. I took lots of photos which I sent to Geraldine and then to the Kimberley Boys High and took photos of the academic honors boards which I sent to Leon, and he's used those names for his project that he's added to the Kahila Link site. And so I'm just a ring-in, as I say. But Trevor Tobe, your academic achievements were legendary in my time. And everyone mentioned your name that said, yep, he had the brains. So, and I just before I sort of leave it to you, Kimberley people, I just want to say a wonderful thank you and congratulations to Geraldine for putting together not only this, but all the work she's put in for this website. It's really outstanding.
Yeah, very good. Marvin, don't go away. I want to ask you a question. Has Marvin left?
No, I'm here.
Nicely.
Marvin, were you at Kimberley Boys?
Yes.
Oh, then we must have known each other. I was in the same year as Pearlie.
Yes. And
Um,
sorry.
do you
are-
remember Ruth Witebski?
Yes.
Well, I was her best friend. We were together all the time.
Okay.
And there was a very tall girl, Mariana Gardner.
Don't
She was
remember.
about 6'2". And we walked together, the three of us, like the three musketeers, 6'2", then me, and then Ruthie at the bottom. Ruthie was about 5 foot.
Ah, right. Okay. And your maiden name?
Apter.
Oh, okay. Yes, of course. Yes, Robin is now. What relation to Robin?
He's my cousin.
Oh, I see. Okay, nice.
And
Now,
Ivan Tucker.
Yes, Ivan.
Ivan
yes,
was in your year.
That's
at
quite
school.
right. When you talk about the girls, you see, us hostel boys used to sit on, when you enter the shul, on the left side, because all the young girls sat up on the right, and we could look up at them. And
I was sitting on the right.
oh, well, there you are. I'm sure you don't recognize me. I think I've changed a bit.
I remembered your name.
I
think
see.
we used to go to Biscope on a Saturday afternoon
Definitely.
and buy chips on the
That's
way.
Barbara.
Chips.
That's,
Okay, so,
that's Sylvia Apter. And
Snap
Mary
chips.
Guild has just come in.
Yes, hello everybody.
Can you
Hello.
tilt your screen a bit so we can see your chin?
Ah,
There we are. That's good. Lovely.
yeah.
So now, you see, most people have got their names on. If you haven't got your name on, I'm going to get mixed.
I don't know how to. Where do I do that?
Who knows how to tell her how to put her name on it?
I think when you set up your account on the iPad,
Yes, that's when it happens.
that's when it happens.
Look at that painting. And who?
Okay, because otherwise I'm going to have to.
Hang on,
Rona Salkinder is coming in.
Oh, the Salkinders. I remember them. They used to be next door to the shop. Remember S. Apter and Company?
Yes, I do.
Yes,
Yeah, went to next door.
Tolkien's was round the corner.
Were they round the corner? Thanks, Urge.
Shepton went Southeast Street, and the street round the corner, I forget the name.
Now, who's this on the Rona Salkinder? It's obviously not Rona. It's
Who else has joined? I hope David comes on soon. Well, the names are all wrong.
well, the names are, some of them are fine. BB
Yeah.
is Beverly Brenner.
that's because my grandchildren call me Bebe, and that's the name they started the phone on.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's
Brenna,
nice.
Brenna, I remember Brent. Hang on, what's Beverly?
Yes, that's right.
Beverly, I remember you.
Of course you do. Yes.
You know, I didn't go back to Kimberley.
You were the same years, Leslie. My
Leslie.
brother Leslie.
Brenner.
Leslie, yeah,
Brenner.
okay.
Yeah.
And Pam,
Yeah.
Pam was a year ahead of us, I think. What happened to Pam Hotz?
Pam
She
Hotz was a year older, yes. Shelley was in between.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then across the road were the Franks and the, can't remember,
Park Road.
can't remember. Sorry.
Crosswich Road.
Carrington Road.
Yes, I was across the road. Yeah.
Are you Brown?
Geraldine, a Kretzmar.
So, but they were the Browns and the Franks across the road from me.
That's right. We were on the corner, a couple of houses down. There was the Franks, the Browns,
Yes.
the Hendersons, and the Kretzmars.
Right. And then on my side of the road was Gail Evanson
Yes.
Yes.
and somebody David. I don't remember which David.
It was Lorraine and Bobby David.
No.
Number 22 Carrington Road was Benny David.
Benny and Sadie.
On the corner.
Sadie
That's 20
David.
22
Next door to
Carrington.
us was the Davids.
But Lorraine and Bob lived further down on that road as well.
Wow.
Who's this? Natalie who?
I don't know any of these people. No?
You don't know anybody. I don't know who. Sorry, what is your name?
Natalie Sussman.
Natalie Sussman. Now the Sussmans, I
I'm
think your
older.
mother had long grey hair. Am I right?
No.
Well, the mother was
No.
Mrs. Kroll. Natalie was Natalie Kroll. There was Natalie,
Kroll.
Stella.
I'm older than any of you.
Sandra was in my class. Sandra was in my class, yes. And Lola
Who
was
remembers
with
the
Linda.
Who remembers the diamonds?
I'm
knew
phoning
that.
David to join there. Oh, look who's there. Hi.
Who's that?
You don't remember? Tobe.
Tobe. Oh, the parents were jewelers.
That's right.
Oh,
I'm
I
friendly
remember
with
the
his
corner.
sister
They were on
Daphne
the
here in
corner,
Cape Town.
On the corner.
opposite
David?
Mechula. They were opposite Mechula and Bothwell. Remember the shop?
That's
Yes.
right,
Mechula and
Mechula
Bothwell.
Bothwell.
I've always told you that.
Hello,
All the
Linda.
Mechula and Bothwell. Natalie Sussman. I don't remember Natalie. I don't think many remember.
No, well,
me
I'm much
either.
older than all of
When
you.
I was
She
what,
was
18, 19.
Mom's
This is great
92.
fun. David will join us now, I think. David Diamond. He stays near us here in Cape Town, in Sea Point.
I'd like to ask if any of the ladies remember my sister, Dorina Eberlin. Dorina?
I do.
Yeah.
Yes, I do.
Hi.
How's it?
All right, and you?
Oh, who's that?
Okay.
That's a familiar
Hi,
face.
Linda who?
Okay, fine.
okay.
Linda.
Oh, Jenny,
Hi, Lynn. How
I
are
know
you?
the face.
Roy, Jenny or Roy Lipsitz is coming in. So
good.
that's nice. So when it's time to start, I'm going to ask you each to introduce yourself properly again, but it's nice that you have a chance to chat with each other now.
Having a little chat. It's lovely. What a wonderful idea, Geraldine. This is really fabulous.
Well, you know, it's so,
It is.
so easy. Why not?
It
You know?
is, hey.
It's so
Oh,
easy.
we
yeah.
had David Diamond and I had a
Okay,
lovely
No,
Zoom with
Martha.
Delia Brown, Delia Ben. It was wonderful.
Yeah.
Who's that new face? Who's that new
Hi,
face? I
Jenny.
know that face, but I don't know her name.
That's Jenny. Jenny.
That's Jenny Lipshut. Jenny Klein.
Jenny Klein.
Hi.
Klein.
Oh, Jenny, what? Put your face in, let me
Yeah.
see. She's young.
That's Jenny Klein, you can see.
Gosh, hey, how we've all changed.
Kevin Gillis is coming in. Is that your nephew?
If you need to turn on your picture.
What's his name? That's the what's the name's brother? Oi.
Who?
I
Arthur.
don't know if this brings- I don't know if this brings back any-
What's his name?
Boys
I
High.
don't know.
Yay! KHS.
Before.
Arthur's his son.
Pearl our Bores and our
His brother.
Nores.
He's in
There you
London.
go.
The Trevor. That's it. That's it.
Trevor?
Who's this? Alvin Klein.
Trevor who?
Trevor Tobe.
It's me.
Ah, Trevor Tobe.
There you go. Hi, Trevor. It's Marion. How are you?
I already waved at you. I'm fine.
Oh,
thanks.
good.
I see it on my screen. It says Kevin. It's obviously Daft.
Yeah, no, Trevor, I'm on my computer and that's on a
Kevin
iPad.
Gillis.
Yeah,
Oh, Kevin, come in.
I am in. I am in.
I can't see you.
No, you can't see me because my computer doesn't have a camera.
Oh,
It has no
That's
camera. It's one of
his-
these old-fashioned ding-dongs.
Right.
Maybe we
Kevin.
should have a
That is
workaround.
Kevin.
It's your
Hello,
mom.
who's that? Who
Well,
is that?
That's
well,
Kevin.
mother
Huh?
should be there.
Glenn Kirshner.
I'll go see if she's on. Just hang on.
Leon
Come
Shonner.
on, where's David?
Log in, Lee. Log in.
David. David?
Oh, okay.
Yes, we're in. We're having lovely
There's-
chats
there's
here.
a
Where are
target
you?
on log in. All right, okay.
No,
Come
man.
on, we've been chatting already for 10 minutes.
Okay, Daphne's coming in.
Yeah, please come in. Okay, see you.
Hi, Leon.
Hey, Hirsch.
And that
Here we are.
Hillary Joker.
You're doing good.
Ah,
Look,
Hi, Joy.
there she is.
Often.
Yes, Leon.
How are you doing?
were you
Miss Leon
contemporary?
There's Leon. Oh, Leon.
Oh, is that you, Leon? Wow.
Huh? I want to tell you all that it's 6 o'clock in the morning. Yeah,
That's okay. It's worth it.
I'm still rather sleepy.
Very brave to
Scans, iPad mini.
Where are you, Leon?
I'm in
Leon.
Toronto.
Hi there.
Oh, right.
Yeah,
Leon, he's in Canada.
It's Leon. Hi
yeah,
there.
I'm in Canada.
Stan Evelyn, Leon.
Okay, well, I'll tell you what.
With Joy Cape
We've
on.
now got a minion, which is I take it as 20 is a good minion for a Zoom meeting. There's David Diamond is coming in, and
Is he
also
coming in? Oh, good.
Eli Rabinovitz is coming in.
Eli
And then what I'm going to do shortly is mute everybody and then
Okay.
invite you one at a time to actually say who you are, because it doesn't always say on your screen, and where you are, and some memory from Kimberley. And then we'll go around everybody like that. And then if there's more time, we'll have more chat. So that's okay. I'm going to mute everybody.
Okay.
And allow you to unmute yourself at the appropriate time. Gosh, it's lovely and quiet now. Anyway, you know, it just struck me that we're so used to Zoom and how amazing it is to actually bring people together. You know, we're all sitting close to each other in the same room. And who could ever have dreamt of doing that even physically? So welcome everybody, and we look forward to hearing from you. So I'm going to start with Hirsch Jokum, because you just happen to be top right in my screen. If you can unmute yourself and tell us where you are, what you've been doing since we saw you last, etc.
Okay, so as you heard, I'm Hirsch Jokum. I'm in Pretoria. I'm a medical practitioner, practiced in Pretoria all my professional life. Was a boarder at Boys High from 1962 to 71. Probably went back to Kimberley the last time, maybe just over 20 years ago, to show my children a school, etc., etc. Haven't been back since. And yes, things that come to mind, particularly, I think, Rabbi and Mrs. Werner and their absolute dedication and sacrifice to give us a Jewish education, Cheder, bar mitzvah lessons. And yes, if I have one regret, it's not having continued with Rabbi Werner's education post bar mitzvah. And of course, I remember at all brochas, us kids running in, charging into the hall to the food. Yeah, those are memories that come to the fore.
And where were you born, Hirsch? Where did you?
I was born in Cape Town.
And where did you live before you came to Kimberley to school? Where did you
lived in Cape Town, but then my parents went farming, from 1958. So I was a boarder then from 62 to 71 at Boys High. And when I left, I came to university in Pretoria because it was my, I'd wanted to study veterinary, and that was the only faculty in South Africa. Didn't get into veterinary, and yeah, so I chose medicine.
And where did your family farm, or do they still farm?
No, not anymore. They farmed in the Vryburg district. Both my parents have passed on, but my cousin who took over the farming enterprise has just recently, probably a month ago, gone on Aliyah on account of the crime in South Africa. They didn't feel safe anymore on the farm because of all the death threats and murders and what have you. So unfortunately, that business is grinding to a halt slowly.
Thank you, Hirsch. We may come back to you. Maybe people have got questions. I think I'd like to go to Marvin next as being similar. Were you together with Hirsch at all, Marvin? Can you unmute yourself? Unmute yourself.
Hi. Yes, I was at Boys High from 1960 to 64, and I'm from Uppington originally. That's why all the Uppington boys went to Kimberley Boys High as they hit high school. So we were there at that time. And I think I'm repeating myself when I say we were welcomed, especially, well, in our case, by the David family, 22 Carrington Road. I remember clearly signing out on weekends to go and spend the weekend with them, or the Yom Tovim. Rabbi Werner, you mentioned, I used to go to shul on a Saturday morning because I was the only Cohen who would go on a Saturday morning, and they sometimes let the hostel know if I didn't turn up. And I live in Melbourne in Australia, and I mentioned my contemporaries at the time, David Goldberg, who I believe is in Sydney, Les Brenner, Louis Averbach, Ivan Tocker, whose father once did a locum for my father in Uppington. And yes, I remember going to the shul, and those bar mitzvahs were something special because we'd always make sure we went to shul because there was a wonderful spread afterwards. But thoroughly enjoyed my time in Kimberley.
Excellent. Okay.
Oh, sorry, one more thing is I went back in 2017 and we went to the shul and took some wonderful pictures, and also to the Boys High. That's the only time I've been back.
And Marvin's pictures are on the website. You can see his gallery. There's some fantastic galleries of pictures of the shul and descriptions of the shul on the website. So it was just my idea that we should make a website, you know, and I tried to get the Kimberley people to send a newsletter or to tell us what was going on. And, you know, eventually, like the little red hen, I had to say, well, if they won't do it, I'll have to do it myself. And that's how it started. So, Bibi, Beverly Brenner, tell us about you. Unmute.
Okay. I was at school, finished in 67. The last time I went back, I'm living in Perth now, Perth in Australia, and I've been here for 9 years. The last time I went to Kimberley was for the Girls' High, my 40th reunion, 40 years after school, and I stayed on the farm with Trevor Datner, just outside Kimberley. And I've been in Perth here, as I say, for 9 years. My one son and family and granddaughters are here. I still have a son in Johannesburg and a granddaughter there. And that's it. Very happy to be here, settled in and made a good life, and it's wonderful. And they come and visit when they can or when they could. It'll be a while yet.
That's great. Now here, I'm quite friendly with your cousin, Anthea Cohen.
Anthea, yes. Anthea and Lorraine, yes.
A wonderful book about the Brenner girls.
Yes.
But
That's
I'm
right.
trying to get her to let me put it on the website, but so far, so ask her to do that, the Kimberley part.
Okay.
Really,
Okay.
really lovely, the Brenner girls. Stan, now, thanks, Beverly. We may come back to you if you can mute again. Stan Eberlin. Now, I remember Stanley Eberlin. He was a little boy. He was quite small, always in the front in Hashtilim. I think that I used to take I used to take the girls rather than the boys at Hashtilim, but I think Norma Levinson took the boys. Do you remember that at all, Stan?
No, I don't remember. Excuse me, I don't remember that name. But first of all, I'd like to thank Geraldine for the regular updates and obviously for putting this all together. Thank you, Geraldine. So to reintroduce myself, my parents, Harry and Phoebe Eberlin, my sister Dorina. My parents passed away, well, my dad passed away in 1954, and I left Kimberley after being at Boys High from Standard 1 to Standard 5, and I left at the end of 1954. We had moved, my mum and Dorina had moved to Johannesburg, and I've been in Johannesburg ever since. So of possible interest, I know so many names, but because I left when I was so young, there are many people I don't know. But I certainly, Trevor was a great friend of mine, and I remember Leon Chanan very well. And he was also a small guy, as I recall. So lots of memories. We went back to Kimberley in 2017. I visited Boys High. We went to the shul, visited my dad's grave, and it was really a trip down memory lane. It was wonderful. And
your wife organized that for you as a birthday present.
That's quite right. That's quite right, Geraldine. Just a little background. I lost my wife after 47 years of marriage, and my wife and I met. She had lost her husband after 44 years of marriage, and we are now together and very grateful that we have our lives together, obviously. So Kimberley days are, gee whiz, a long, long, long way away, a long time ago. It's good to see some faces. Trevor, you might remember that you introduced me to Phase 4 records, which at that time I think were the first stereo records ever made. So I have a memory of that, although I'm not quite sure what I remember about yesterday or the day before. And that's me, and maybe we can chat later, and I hand over to everybody else.
Thank you, Stan. That's lovely. Trevor, that goes on, leads nicely onto you.
It was a seamless link, Geraldine.
Yeah.
I want to echo Stan's tribute to Geraldine. Geraldine and I were in primary school together, in infant school, Sub-A and Sub-B, in about 1946. So I've known Geraldine longer than almost anybody else in the world. And she has done astonishing things all over, particularly about Jewish music and chazanot, both in Britain and in the world. I was born the day Germany invaded Poland, so I was responsible for the start of the Second World War. I was at Boys High forever. I suppose really I left Kimberley in 1956 when I left school, although I did go back for holidays from university, went to Rhodes first, then to Pietermaritzburg, and then in 62 I left came to Britain, went to Cambridge. I have been an academic for over 50 years, but I'm now finally retired. I think I was the person who went most to the Kimberley Schule ever. And I have performed a similar function here. I live in London, about 3 minutes walk from Paddington Station. I have 2 children and 5 grandchildren. One of my children, my daughter, is a 20-minute walk from my front door, and I'm there every Friday night. And I would not have survived this year of the plague without her help. I think the last time I was in Kimberley must have been, the best part of 20 years ago, just before my mother moved to Cape Town. I have been back to Cape Town though, because as you will see a little later when you meet my sister, I go to see Daff every year if I can, although at the moment nobody seems to be going anywhere. And while I'm there, I see friends and family who are in Cape Town, so that's very nice. Apart from that, I am still writing music. I cook a great deal, and if anyone's prepared to talk to me, I talk.
You've got a great collection of cookery books, haven't you?
Only 1,500.
Oh, you've how many?
1,500.
1,500 cookbooks. So if you ever want to know what to cook, just dial up Trevor.
Yes, I still look things up on Google as well, though.
That's the thing now, isn't it? Okay.
Indeed.
So let's now, thanks Trevor, go to Sylvia Apter, who is on your screen as Asa MR.
Asa MR? What's that?
Well, that's what it says on your little
Oh,
box.
Asa, that's the name of that's the computer I'm using. I don't know why it came up like that.
Because you
Okay.
haven't written your name on it. But never mind. Tell us
Maybe I
about
should do it on the
you.
outside, and by osmosis it will flow through. Okay, number 1, my parents were Bert Apter and Evelyn Jokum. That's how I'm related to Hirsch through my mother's family. And I was born in Cape Town, and soon after my father's uncle passed away, his cousins asked him to join them in Kimberley. And my mother wasn't that excited initially until she remembered that her cousin lived not far away. So off we came to Kimberley. So I was about 7 or 8 when I arrived in Kimberley. And my cousins were all male. So I grew up a bit of a tomboy. I learned to play cricket, usually silly mid-off, which was not very pleasant, somewhere on the golf course. I spent a lot of my time at 50 Memorial Road and 52 Memorial Road.
Sorry. I'll just mute myself.
Okay. And all my school holidays, which were wonderful years, for 8 years, I think it was, I spent on the farm the one that Hirsch mentioned. And the happiest memory of living in Kimberley was going to the race course with my father, going for walks with my father, feeling this immense, now that I look back on it, this immense sense of freedom. We could walk everywhere. We walked to our friends. Do you remember? I'm sure you all remember that we had so much freedom. Obviously, the people that we didn't know about didn't have that kind of freedom, but that's another story. I can't remember all the questions that you posed to us that we should talk about. So my happiest memories were the freedom I had and playing with my cousins. I hated school. I didn't like that strict idea of schooling, wasn't my scene. And I went to Johannesburg, and then I went there and I went here, and I traveled around, lived all over South Africa because I wanted to know the country as well as I possibly could before one day I might decide to leave, which I did 9 years ago. So I'm in a luck now. And I'm very thrilled to announce that my cousin is only just over 100 kilometers away from me, which is nothing compared to before. We were the minimum of nearly 2 hours drive when I lived in Kimberley. Then when I lived in Johannesburg, it was about 5 hour drive. And now it's just over an hour, about an hour and 20 minutes. I haven't seen them yet. They just arrived. So I'm thrilled. I'm happy living here. And that's it.
I think Geraldine has muted herself because she's
on the phone.
Yeah. So anyway, I thought since I've been pretty active with Kahila Links with Geraldine, as you know, I've written a lot of articles for Kahila Links. And at this stage, I'd like to thank Eli, who established this Kahila Links, and it's a wonderful website. The Kimberley website, I think, is one of the finest you'll see on Kahila Links. Anyway, let me tell you a little bit about myself. I think a lot of you know me. Hirsch is my cousin. We're related to the Jochems, and obviously Sylvia is related to the Jochems from Mike Jochem's side, and I'm from Dinah's side, Mike's wife. I was born in Kimberley. I grew up, I went to school in Kimberley. I participated in the community. I was Rosh Madrich of Habonim. My family were very active in the community. My grandfather was one of the most religious Kimberley men. He conducted the services at the Grena Shul and at Memorial Road Shul, and my father as well. After school at Kimberley Boys High, I can't say I had great achievements like perhaps Trevor, who was one of the most brilliant scholars there that I recall. After school, I left, I went to Johannesburg, I went to Wits University. I became a chartered accountant, and eventually I headed up an international engineering company in Johannesburg with the factories around South Africa. We had them in Vereeniging and one in Natal. I then, after a merger and acquisitions of the offshore operations, I left South Africa. My children had already emigrated. I've got 2 daughters, one who lives in Cleveland, Ohio, and another, my younger daughter lives here in Toronto. So we joined here in Toronto. And yeah, other than the weather, I can say that it's a wonderful country. I think it's one of the finest countries in the world. A relatively large population, but it's sparse out around, a huge land mass. Yeah, I can say that we're very happy here. I'm delighted to see people like Stan Eberlin. I remember you from Habonim days. That was wonderful. And David Diamond, I played hockey with David for many years, and Marvin, we played hockey as well at school. It's wonderful to see you. And yeah, the other, faces are, your names are familiar, but the faces are no longer familiar. It's quite strange. I also want to thank Geraldine for, for hosting this and for the work that she does on Kahila. It's really, it's an amazing work. It takes us many, many hours. I mean, I devoted a lot of hours, in researching some of the material that I've written. So, yeah, I would like to see more people participate, because the more people that do, the better that the Kimberley site will grow. So, yeah, so to all of you, great to see you all, and I'll hand it back to Geraldine, who seems to be back with us.
Thank you, Leon. And Leon's been a wonderful supporter of the website and written most valuable and interesting articles. He's written about Habonim. He's written about keeping a kosher home in Kimberley. He's written about Jewish education in Kimberley, and that's where we came to the Dux Medalist Boards. And he's written about his grandparents, and especially valuable was the business survey, where he looked through everything. So Leon is a great associate of the website. We're very grateful to him, because I'm only reactive. What comes to me, I can turn around and give it back to you, but I can't find it myself. So I'm really grateful to everybody who's been such good responders and sending me things. That's what makes it worthwhile to me. I don't feel I'm banging a dead horse. I feel that there's love and interest coming back, and that's what makes it worthwhile. So thank you very much, Leon, and thanks also to the others. Even if you just drop me a line to say I've read the newsletter, it makes a difference, which is very nice. And of course, Natalie and the late Cecil Sussman were wonderful correspondents, and also sent a lot of interest. And Natalie's insights are so wonderful, Natalie, because it's not just about the facts, it's about the nuances, it's the insights, it's what was really happening that makes the story interesting, really. So Natalie, perhaps you and Laura would like to unmute and say something now. Can you do that? Yep. You have to unmute. Do you know how to do that? It's usually bottom left.
There you go.
Yeah, we've got it.
Okay.
There you go.
Yeah. Well, I feel that I'm very much the great granny here, much older than everybody else. I think I must be the eldest living ex-Kimberleyite. I'm going to be 93. So all the lovely people I'm seeing, I don't even remember from Kimberley. We left 50 years ago to come to Cape Town to be with the children. But Cecil and I certainly had wonderful years in Kimberley. We were extremely happy. Our friends were lifelong friends. I'm sure everybody remembers Julie Jacobson, Julie Lurie. They afterwards, I think that the Davids must have bought 22 Cannington Road from the Luries. And Julie and I remained friends to the end of her life, because they had also migrated to Cape Town to be with their children. And Geraldine, a big thank you to you. What you're doing is tremendous, really tremendous. Thank you, Geraldine.
And from me also, a big
And
thank
from
you.
Laura too.
And just keeping the memories alive. We have to tell the stories, and we are so thrilled that you have told the stories. And yeah, we in lockdown can't see our London kids, but we've got a daughter here, which we're very grateful for. And we've got mom in the same block. So we just have to get on with it and wait for the days when we can travel
Well,
again.
Mom is lucky to be in the same block.
But thank you for everything that you do.
Thanks, Geraldine.
Well,
You know
thank
that
you for your feedback and your response. That's what makes it worthwhile. So
Well,
very
we're
happy.
thoroughly enjoying it. I can't tell you what it means to us. We're a very close family, and family ties are very important to us. And you have put us in touch with our roots, with our great-grandparents. We never thought to ask questions, and we didn't have a Geraldine to tell the stories. So today, we regret that we never asked. We just never thought to say, what was your life like in Lithuania? Why did you leave? Who did you leave behind? I do know that after that dreadful war, when the news broke about the Holocaust, that I do remember that my dad and his brothers said shiver because they knew the family that they had lost. It was the same with Colin Sussman. They had also said shiver because they had lost their dear ones there. But as I say, Geraldine, you know, Kimberley was a wonderful place. I don't know what it's like today. It can't be the same place we left. We left a thriving city. And I've only been back once. I'm sorry Jeff didn't connect with us tonight. But when Jeff qualified as a civil engineer, he married a girl from Oudtshoorn and he got a position. They were building a bridge with the river Makwasi in the Free State. And Jeff said, come, we'll go through to Kimberley. I found it very difficult going back. That strangers were living in my home. It didn't matter that Jeff said they paid for the privilege of living in the house. But I found it a very unhappy situation. And staying in a hotel, very few of my friends were left there because Goldemel had passed away and Claire came to Highlands House in Cape Town. So I saw Claire very often. And they say most of my Kimberley friends were living here already. Nobody has told you the story of the Price family of Kimberley.
Tilly, are you talking, Tilly and Phil?
No, I'm talking about the Dave Price, Morris Price, Natalie Price. They were a family who had lost their parents when they were young. And Sam Price, the older ones, worked to put Sam through university. He became a doctor. And Morris Price was a very brilliant young man. I don't know if he was the same age as Theo, that I don't know. But he went to live in Canada. But I wish somebody would tell the story because they've all passed on.
Well, it looks like it's you, Natalie. You're the only one who remembers them. So please try and tell us the story. And
I will.
Sylvia, that reminds us that we
can see what I can recollect.
Yes, please do, because you're a wonderful writer. I really enjoy everything you write.
But
and Sylvia,
Geraldine,
Price, we don't know anything about either, and their daughter Rosalind. Maybe Daphne knows about Rosalind when we get to Daphne. Yes, Natalie?
Geraldine, I read a paragraph last night, which I'm going to send to you. It says, what would have happened if we didn't have roads? Now, I want you to write. What would have happened to this country? We would have had a different history, and perhaps you would all still be living here. If it had been no Cecil John roads, there would have been no Anglo-Boer War, and there would not have been that strict division between English-speaking and Afrikaans-speaking and our Khoisan and all our tribes that live here. So I will send you that, and you could make up the story accordingly. Okay.
You
What
know,
ifs?
if there hadn't been Cecil John Rhodes, there'd have been another person like that, you know.
No, but the others are Jews. They didn't want to paint African continent red.
Yeah, the Jews all fell behind Rhodes because he was the one who was going to achieve what they wanted, because they knew that they had to control the diamonds, otherwise they would become worthless.
You don't think Alfred Bart would have been able to?
No, not at all. Alfred Bart threw himself behind Rhodes because Rhodes had the flair, he had the connections, the political connections. He was the one that there was a big cohort of German
Jews.
Financiers and diamond merchants. They all decided that Rhodes was the one to back because they knew that in order to make money out of diamonds, you had to control the supply. And what's that you're showing us, Sylvia?
It's not exclusively that the
Jews in the Boer armed forces.
Well,
You
you wanted to know if somebody had written that story. There you
but
are.
Geraldine, that's a different aspect.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the Jewish farmers who were dominant in South Africa.
Well, there you go. These are the guys who served on the Boer side during the Anglo-Boer War.
Geraldine has done that story.
Okay.
Geraldine has done that.
I haven't read.
Well, I just wrote to Geraldine 2 days ago or 3 days ago. This is the first time I'm involved with anything Kimberley-wise.
It's great.
I knew your mom.
To have you, Sylvia.
Did you know my mother?
Yes. Yes.
So, Sylvia or Geraldine, could somebody please send me the details of that book? Who wrote it? Because my grandfather fought in the Boer War.
Okay. Sylvia,
I'd be interested.
If you know how to work the chat, there's a thing at the bottom called...
yes, I do.
And you can write down the name of that book, but I'm sure you can look it up on Amazon. Who wrote it, Sylvia?
You know the guy who's the editor of the Jewish Times in South Africa? David Sachs?
Is that who wrote that book?
Yeah, he's the editor. He was the editor of
David, what's his surname? David?
Sachs. S-A-K-S.
David Sachs.
Okay, all right.
Yes, but that's Boere Jode in the armed forces. I'm talking about in South Africa, they called them Boere Jode, the farmers.
Exactly, because those are the people that fought in the Boer War. They were incredible marksmen. They could shoot on riding a horse, and they were accurate from a mile away. They had incredible guns. I don't know how they got hold of them.
They got it from Germany.
They were German-made.
Germany arms.
That's right.
Germany armed the Boers.
Now,
we had gold.
The other interesting book I've just read is called Commando by Denise Rates. And he writes about being a young teenager in the Boer War and how they managed on their horses and, you know, with the extra horses and sleeping in the veld. And it's an incredible story because we hardly knew about the war. You know, I remember Afrikaans set works, which were set in the Oorlog, and I had no idea what they were talking about. No idea at all. So,
Geraldine, thank you. You really have enriched our lives.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you. As I say, you're the ones who are supplying the material from which I can bake the cakes, the ingredients. Marion, do you want to carry on, please? Unmute yourself.
Okay, there I am.
Yes.
I was Marion Schild. My mother had the dress shop in the Toitspan Road, Continental Styles. I was born and grew up in Kimberley, and I met and married my husband, Leslie Lewis, whose sister was married to Lampy Mareski. Nobody's spoken much about the Mareski family. And at the moment, we're in Cape Town, and Cynthia stays right across the road from us. Lampy passed away about 6 years ago, and I miss him terribly. He was the most wonderful, wonderful man and physician, and so loved and liked here in Cape Town. And yeah, that's another generation that's disappearing fast, unfortunately. Les and I have 2 children. We have a son in London who is married with 2 children there. And we have a daughter who also lives across the road from us, and she has 1 child. And, you know, we're getting old like everybody else. Les, of course, is much older than I am anyway. But we're very happy here in Cape Town. We love it. We see David and his wife Marilyn from time to time, and we see Daphne Gillis a lot. She was Daphne Tobe, and we try to connect with a few people. But you know, time is passing by very quickly, and it's quite sad actually. But yeah, I'm in touch with Harold Hecht in Australia. Is there anybody there from Australia?
Well, this was my meeting that was going to be suitable for Australians. So I'm sure we have a few. Because later in the day they can't. So shall I go to Jenny, who's from...
Just one other thing quickly. Leon Chonnen and I were in Sub A together, and we had planned a wedding and a honeymoon at that age. I think we were sitting next to each other in class. I can't remember exactly. I don't know if Leon remembers, but it was great. We had an amazing
Marian,
childhood.
I'm sorry I let you down.
But anyway, we're all growing old quite gracefully, aren't we?
Absolutely, but just remember, you are the ones with the memories. So, you know, don't let them go. I mean, there's certain people who've got, like Jane Beth Cantor's mother wrote a wonderful saga about growing up in Tongs. So I'm trying to get her to transcribe it, and so that we can, you know, those are the stories that we need to capture. So hopefully we can do that.
It would be lovely
to do that.
And Geraldine, thanks for all your hard work. It really is appreciated. I enjoy the letters, the communications. They're wonderful.
Thank you. I'm glad you enjoy it, because you know that makes it worthwhile.
Yes, it's a lot of work.
Thanks. And of course, Eli's the one who puts it up on the website. And without Eli, there would be no website. So we're a team. We're
Lovely.
a great team.
That's lovely.
We work together. So isn't it incredible? I'm in London, he's in Perth, and we're doing Kimberley together. So
wonderful.
Jenny, do you want to come in now?
Okay, yes. Well, welcome, Geraldine. I sort of remember you, but not very clearly. Thank you for all the work you've done. You certainly have written a history book for the Jews of Kimberley. I live in Melbourne, Australia. I have 2 brothers, Louis and Melvin. They're on the Zoom as well. And our youngest brother, Bentley, died 3 weeks ago from a struggle with cancer. And we've had a really rough time caring for him. And it's still very raw, and we miss him so much already. I've been here for 30 years. Bentley had been here 33 years. And Louis and Malvin have each been here for 27. My mom lived with us until she died 20 years ago. And yeah, we love living in Melbourne. We're friendly with Marvin and Lois. And I got married in Kimberley. As you've seen, I put all my information on the website. I've been teaching kindergarten all my life, and I retired a year ago. I'm still doing emergency teaching, and I'm involved in doing different charity works. I loved my life in Kimberley. We had such a good upbringing. Life was so free and easy compared to now. I've married Roy Lipsitz from Cape Town. We've been married 46 years. I've got 2 sons. One lives in Melbourne, one in Sydney, and 5 grandchildren. And my grandson is having a bar mitzvah in June, please God. But we still think of Kimberley with fond memories. And I haven't been back for many, many years. We were intending to go to South Africa a year ago for a family wedding, but because of COVID, we had to cancel. So unfortunately, that didn't happen. So good to see so many faces. Don't remember everybody, but some people I do. Leon, I remember you, and Cheryl Brown, I remember you.
Cheryl.
And Linda Capon, and Joy, and Laura and Natalie, and certainly a few others. Hirsch, I remember you. I think I went with you to a school dance once. I don't know. But lovely to see everybody, and I just wish everybody good health, and please God, COVID to be finished soon. It's really ruined life in this world. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Penny. Linda, do you want to come in now? You need to unmute. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Linda Capon. My sister has unfortunately had to leave, so I'll just pick up if anybody wants to ask anything. I live in Johannesburg now. I have one son, and a daughter-in-law living in Sweden. And yeah, life carries on, COVID and all. I see my cousin Beverly's here on. Unfortunately, my brother Leon couldn't join us. And hi to everybody else, to Laura, to Natalie, to Jenny. Lovely to see you all. Yeah, that's me. My sister actually wrote a book in 2013 about my parents. It wasn't commercially, available, but perhaps she can let you have it at some stage. I'll ask her to drop you a line and send it through to you. It's a lovely little memoir of the family.
Well, this is a perfect place to put it if she wants to, especially the Kimberley. Just remind us who your parents were.
Dave and Beryl Capon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
my cousin, sorry?
Yeah, carry on.
My cousin Vicky is in Cape Town still. She's the only family left from the rest of the Capon family. My mom and dad have both passed on. And then Joy and Leon and myself.
And Vicky has written some lovely stuff that's on the website.
Yeah.
She's given us a lovely flavor of the Capon family. But, whatever you've got, here is a place to preserve it and to make it accessible. And as I said to you in the latest newsletter, we're now working with the South African Jewish Museum and the Kaplan Center to see how to encourage community online history. So it's going a little bit further. So thank you, Linda, for that.
Thanks very much for hosting, Geraldine.
Had to go. Oh, look, Dave Allen is coming, a Kimberley person. Wow. Well, Cheryl, do you want to take over from there? Do you want to come in? Just unmute, yeah?
Okay, well, I'm in Boston, and I got up at 6 in the morning because I wanted to see all of you. And I just want to start off and say, Geraldine, I'm thrilled to have this record personally for my children, for my grandchildren, because there always seems to be projects about roots And I think it's so important for our kids to know our history. So it's just, you've created a record for all of us that we so appreciate. My history was, I was born in Kimberley to Helen and Icky Brown. I grew up there. Then I went to Wits, to UCT and to Wits. And I'm sure you remember Averbach and Brown and my mother, Helen Brown, who was so active in the community. She started an arts festival in Kimberley because she was very interested in culture, and she had been a concert pianist in her own right and a music teacher, and wanted to be sure that there would be culture for the upcoming generations. So she actually approached De Beers and she got them to provide a sponsorship, and she was able to bring very high quality adjudicators to Kimberley. I remember her bringing Dulcie Howes, who was in charge of ballet at UCT, and other leading music teachers and experts to Kimberley to create a standard for students to aspire to. She was also very active in the Music Society, and I remember her bringing world-class performers like Andor Foldies to Kimberley. I actually remember some of them staying in our house. So it was a wonderfully exciting childhood with such a dynamic mother. I have memories of the Diamond Days because my grandfather was, Mazeda was Jacob Moreski. So he was also a diamond digger. He was a stalwart at the shul. And I remember him driving around Kimberley. He smoked Texan cigarettes, and he was busy washing the ground for diamonds, but he was also at home studying the Talmud. So we had a whole mix of things going on in our house. I have lots of diamond memories. I remember one day asking him what he had in his pocket, and he pulled out what looked like a little medicine bottle, and it looked like pieces of quartz. It was from the washings of the day. So it was an interesting place to grow up. The last time I was in Kimberley was for the World Cup, and almost nobody remained. I had my cousin David Allen and Barney, and I met up with Brenda Horwitz also. I stayed with Beryl Ben. It also felt peculiar to come to Kimberley and have to stay, not to have somebody to stay with. And I remember meandering down around in the Kimberley Cemetery and feeling like I knew so many people. I walked up and down the tombstones and remembered everybody who lived on our street and close by and the whole community, and going to the Kimberley Shul and almost feeling like there were the ghosts of all. I knew where my granny Clara Brown used to sit, and my mother, and Stella Levinson and everybody else, and looking down and feeling like they were all there, but maybe in spirit only. Growing up, my contemporaries were Raleen Jacobson, Gail Levinson, Brenda Geller. And we were not particularly academic or discriminating in our activities in any way, or particularly cultured, but we actually made Kimberley fun. Most of our weekends were spent at the Jacobsons' house with boys' high boarders or college boarders visiting, and or walking down to the plaza or the Astra to go to the movies. And we had actually had a good life. I see some people on the Zoom that I remember. I went to Cheder with Leon Chonin. Sylvia lived across the street at Carrington Road. I think Marvin, I didn't know Marvin that well, but when I left UCT and went to Wits, I boarded with a woman on Clavelli Road, and Marvin had preceded me as the boarder. So she had high opinions of people from Kimberley. Marion Schultz, I remember her well because she was a close friend of Delia's. And I think her father may have also worked at Averbach and Brown for some period of time. And I'm in Boston. I left South Africa in 1972. And I live in Boston now. I lived in Southern California for 31 years. And I'm a retired librarian. Thanks to Alma Frank, who was a librarian. And my mother, for not knowing what I was going to do after I got my BA, was having tea with Hannah Frank, who said, Alma's a librarian, and she says it's quite nice. So on that warm recommendation, I became a librarian, and it's been a good career for me. So,
lovely. Okay, thanks, Cheryl. That's just great. Let's go on to Daphne now, please. Daph, you have to unmute, yeah? It's usually in the bottom left. You have to click the microphone.
Okay.
Yeah, good.
Am I online?
You're on. You're on.
Listening to Natalie was the best thing that happened for me this morning, because she was the only one who was older than I am. I'm so much older than all of you. Just last night, one of my sons asked me if I knew who Jaime Toca was. Of course I knew who he was. I said Geraldine and Trevor went to him every Saturday afternoon. He played classical records for them, taught them all about classical music, and they both became fundies in the subject. So Kimberley stretches everywhere. I matriculated in 1948, but I went back to Kimberley afterwards, after I did my degree, and taught at Boys High until I got married. I enjoyed listening to all Geraldine's stories, reading her newsletters. I can't wait. I love opening the iPad and finding a new letter. It's always great to hear how everybody's doing. Kimberley was a great place to grow up in. You asked about the Price family. I was friendly with Sam. I chased the pants off him because I thought he was a really nice guy. And his sister Natalie was a friend of mine. She was a year or two below me at school. Rosalind Price her father was a dentist. They lived round the corner from us in Belgrave Road. And I had to take her to shul every Saturday morning. We had to walk to shul, and sometimes we decided that we weren't going and we went to the park, and then we had to estimate when it was time for shul to be finished so that we could go home again. Growing up in Kimberley was the easiest thing in the world. We all knew each other, we all got on well together, and life was very easy there. It's so wonderful that Geraldine is collecting all these stories. Everybody who's helping her collect the stories, we all want to know what happened. People in the future will really want to know, but at the moment, it's all of us that really and truly want to know about our past, what has happened to everybody, and the flat that I'm living in Cape Town at the moment, in a retirement home, actually belonged to Joy Goldman. Joy Goldman's mother died when she was born. Joy was in my class at school, and she was brought up by an aunt. But she had two older brothers who had fought in the war, and she was a source of our sex education. because the older boys would tell her everything that needed to be known and she would pass it on to us. She married a cousin that she was madly in love with from the time she was at school. Her father refused to let them marry because they were cousins. They each married someone else and eventually got back together. And this flat that we are living in now is where she lived, but she died a few years ago. So Kimberley connections are everywhere. Everywhere you go, you meet somebody who knows somebody in Kimberley who wants to know what's happened to so-and-so. And Geraldine is doing a wonderful job collecting the stories. If somebody collects them, everybody will tell her. Thank you, Geraldine.
Thanks, Stephanie. That's lovely. David Diamond, maybe this is a good segue to you. If you unmute yourself and you can tell us also from Cape Town.
I've unmuted myself.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Geraldine. To you and your team, it's wonderful to all get all this news, and I'm really thrilled every time I get a letter to read it. I do remember a lot of faces there. I see a lot of faces, a lot of friendly faces, people that I went to school with, people that I knew in Kimberley. It was, for me, it was one of the most wonderful times of my life there. I cannot believe how nice it is. I went back for the last time now in 2019. Some of my friends asked me, it was their 60th school year. I was in 1960, my 60th year. But in 2019, I went with Colin Stein and Mickey Duncan and the guys. There were 6 of us. We had a wonderful time. Unfortunately, I didn't get to shul. I did see the school. I did walk around. I went to 52 Milner Street. I have a picture. They wouldn't let me in. I don't know why. I lived there longer than most of them. I was born there, we left Kimberley, I think, in 1963, went to Joburg, came to Cape Town in 1991. I have 2 children, a son and a daughter. They're both in Cape Town. I have 3 grandchildren. Wonderful thing. I do appreciate it, and thank you very much to all of you. Thank you.
Thanks, David. And David sent that lovely picture of what's the horse's name that was outside Kimberley Saddlery?
I have no idea. I think we called him Dobbin.
Dobbin, yeah. There's a picture of Dobbin on the Diamond family, and the Diamond family story was written by David, but also by Shirley Tallerman, who was a niece and the sister of Hilda Silkiner, Daphne, who was also a friend of yours, who passed away a couple of weeks ago in Israel.
This last week.
Last week, yeah. So that's it. Thanks, David.
Thank you very much.
Melvin. Let's move over to Melvin in Melbourne. Are you there, Melvin? Do you want to say hello? You have to unmute, yeah? Unmute. Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I am Melvin Klein. I lived in Kimberley most of my life. We left Kimberley in 1970 something, I can't quite remember. And I came back to Kimberley in 1984. They said you cry twice when you arrive in Kimberley and when you leave Kimberley. We left Kimberley in 1993, 94, came to Australia. Both my sons were born in Kimberley. In that time when they were born, there wasn't a mile there, so we had to get Rabbi Desmond Maisels to come from Cape Town, and he brought my kids in Kimberley. I have 2 sons. One is living at the moment in Connecticut in the USA. My other son lives here in Melbourne. I have been living in Kimberley in Australia for 28 years. I live here, as my sister told you, with my sister, my brother. We've just lost our brother who was younger. He was battling a very serious illness, cancer, and we're missing him very much so. He died 3 weeks ago, which is very unfortunate. But the clients of Kimberley left a huge legacy behind. If you go into the shul and you turn to the left, there's a cornerstone there with Jacob Klein's name. That was my father's late father. He served Kimberley on the Kimberley Chevra Kadisha. My late father served from a very young age in Kimberley on the Chevra Kadisha as well. My brother served Louis, and he's also on the Zoom chat here tonight. Well, we say night because it's nighttime in Australia. And he served also on the Chevra Kadisha. When we lived in Kimberley, David Allen will remember, we were serving on the Shul committee for many years while we were there with Arnold Roth. He's no longer, David Allen. We sold Klein Brothers. My brother and I took control of Klein Brothers in the early 1982, I think it was 82, 81, 82. We sold out to a company, Dion's, and we transferred our Klein Brothers name to Australia, where we've been busy with in the supply and manufacture of office furniture. We have just recently retired, my brother and I, 3 years ago. I know we promised, my sister has given you some of our history. We've got a lot of history for you, the clients of Kimberley.
Waiting for it.
To tell you the truth, we've been busy with our brother that was seriously ill, and we'll sit down when we got the kayach. We'll sit down, we'll work out a bit of a. And my wife also lived in Kimberley with me, and she comes from Oudtshoorn, and she wants to say hello to Daphne Gillis, because she knows Daphne from, I remember Daphne as well, and her mother lived next to my auntie, the Dubovitzes, in 57 Milner Street. So we've got a lot of history for you if you want. We just need to sit down and put it together.
Okay, what I want to say, Malvin, is don't worry to get it all. Just send me bits, you know.
If you like some, maybe you should go to my brother who's also there, and he can give you some more. Louis Klein.
You need to write it down for me.
Okay.
And send me the pictures.
My wife just wanted to say hello to Daphne.
What's your wife's name?
My wife's name is Stephanie, and she comes from Oudtshoorn. You know, a lot of the Jews, when they came from Lithuania, some of them went to Kimberley and some of them went to Oudtshoorn. Her family went to Oudtshoorn, mine came to Kimberley.
That's right.
And we have been married for 38 years.
Stephanie.
Yeah, Stephanie.
Come and say hi.
Daphne Gillis was at our wedding in Oudtshoorn 38 years ago.
Okay.
Auntie Daphne, lovely to see you after all these many, many years. Nice to see you keeping well. And two things I remember growing up in Oudtshoorn is you always had such a beautiful handwriting. I've never forgotten how beautiful your handwriting was, and the great parties that Arthur used to organize in a flash that were always at your house. So nice to see you, and sending lots of love to all your family.
Thank you. Thanks, Stephanie.
Let
me go now to David and Shirley Allen, because it's really something special to have Kimberley people. We really welcome Kimberley. You know, I find it very hard to draw any information out of people who are living in Kimberley. But I want you to know you're very welcome. We do this for you, you know, so it's great to see you. So you have the floor. Who's going to go first, Shirley or
How are you all? It's lovely to see all the faces. Stephanie, hello. Nice to see you again, not in a Women's Harness League meeting. And Cheryl, oh, it's really lovely seeing all your faces again. And we're still here. You know what they say in Afrikaans, ongryp vergaan nie. We're almost the last pillars here. And I don't know why, because today is a day of 34-degree temperatures, and we're melting here.
Oh, well, we've got a bit of snow in the garden, so there you are.
My youngest son lives in London, and he's keeps telling me how he's freezing to pieces. But we've survived. I don't know what else to say. David and I have lived here on and off since we got married. We've been this year we'll have been married 63 years.
Wow.
And we're still here.
And we're still going to shul on a Friday night.
Yes, David and Barney and Barry Katz and Trevor, when he can come in, they still have their Friday night service, and they sit separated apart from each other with their masks on. And
now tell me something, Shirley and David. What are the thoughts about the people living in Kimberley about the future? You know, what are the conversations they're having? What are their plans for 10 years' time or 15 years' time? What are they thinking about?
Unfortunately, Kimberley has deteriorated tremendously.
I can't hear.
Town is now a no-go area. It really has. You know, they've got a few malls in town, and but nobody goes to town because
the center of town
is totally.
You just don't go there. You can drive through sometimes, but we just never shop there. But we got 2 big malls and a couple of small ones, and the big malls have got every shop and every restaurant, cafe, convenience that we need. And all the private hospitals are in the suburbs. And
So it's become we've got quite a few private hospitals here now, so it's become more or less a hospital center for the district. And funnily enough, what is happening is the Northern Cape, particularly the mining side of it, is being developed by the Australians, not by the locals. And there's quite a lot, there's a tremendous future in that particular field of mining, you know, particularly the mines around Kuruman, where the iron ore is still, and of course in Hot as Hell and that area where, and Copperton, which Copperton disappeared completely, it's now been reopened. They're remining, and as I say, and a lot of Australian companies have moved in, and we're looking for the rare earth metals. So it looks as though we are once again going to become a major mining center, although diamonds seem to have disappeared to a large extent. The De Beers sold out completely in Kimberley, and most of the mines are sort of run. There are only a few mines left that are still mining diamonds in this area. The diamond mining seems to have moved to across the border.
But tell me what your thoughts are about what you're going to do with the shul.
Look, at one stage we offered the shul to the local government in the hope that it would become the centre of parliament. What will happen to it in the future, we don't have any idea at the moment. As I said, as you are well aware, Barney has been made chairman of the small communities, and well, we're really in a quandary. We don't know where it's going to go and where it's going to end up at. Maintaining it is a major, major concern of the 3 of us, the 4 of us that are left here. But that's, and particularly Barney looks after it. But it's, as you can imagine, it's a degree of aging, which is caught at, you know, the roof structure and that sort of thing. But it remains as it is at the moment, and there's no plans. We've made no plans for the future at this stage to know where to go from there. A lot of the other schools have become museums, you know, in the smaller towns.
I'm kind of nudging you to say, well, isn't it time to think about it and make plans? Because otherwise, you know, someone else will make the plans for you. So are there not conversations that need to be had with, whether it's with De Beers, whether it's with the government, whether it's with the South African Board of Deputies? You know, I think you need to have a plan. You can't just sit there and say, well, it's okay for the moment. And if you need some input from expats, you know, I'm sure they'd be willing to give you some opinions if you wanted them. But I think we need to know that there are some plans and that you're thinking about it, because this is the responsibility.
That is true. That is true. Something we must discuss. You know, everyone's avoiding it at the moment. That is the problem.
Well, you know, it's like writing a will. Everybody needs to do it. You shouldn't wait until you die. It's too late, you know. So
Yes.
good. I hope this conversation will spur you on to say, well, actually, we ought to think about it.
Geraldine, can I come in here quickly?
Who's that? Who's that?
Kevin Gillis.
Okay, Kevin.
What I think
Can't see you because he hasn't got
No,
a
I-
camera.
I haven't got a camera. What I think the Kimberley community should do is what my father and the committee there in Oudtshoorn did, and that is that when they realized that the bigger of the two shuls was just too big for the community, they approached the town council, and amongst them, they actually got authority from the town council and the museum to move a portion of the museum and the Oran Kodesh into the Oudtshoorn museum. And I was there with that week that they actually moved it. And it is a most amazing thing there in Oudtshoorn is that if you go to the CPNL Museum, is you will see that there's one point that is higher. The roof is much higher than the rest of the museum. Why? Because the museum said to my father and to everyone else, don't worry about the height of the Oran Kodesh. We'll take the roof off. So don't let anything stop you about moving deconsecrating the shul and moving, say, a portion of it into a museum over there, because I'm sure that the future generations will really and truly appreciate this. Let me just end off by saying that the portion that is in the room that is in the museum is a fully kosher room, and you may not go in there unless you have a kippah on. My mother can tell you much more of the history, and I'm sure she'll be more than willing to help out. But if as I say, if the Kimberley community really and truly wants help, approach my mother, and between everyone else, the ex-Oudtshoorners and around the world, they'll be able to help and solve this conundrum of what to do with a shul that is becoming really and truly redundant, because there's always a solution. Always a solution. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Kevin. I mean, the thing about the Kimberley Shul is you want the museum to move to the shul, not the shul to be split up and moved.
Yeah.
It's a unique and special building. But I think that it's worthwhile thinking what it might become. I mean, it's wonderful that there's still people who go and pray in the shul every week. And I think we all commend that, and we commend everybody in Kimberley who's doing their utmost to keep it going and to do it. But I think we have to know that you're also looking to the future so that you make the best plan rather than let it just happen or let it be sold or demolished or whatever. If you don't make a plan.
You must make a plan. You must make a plan well in advance.
Thanks. Maybe Philip, can I bring you in here now? Please unmute and tell us who you are.
Thanks, Geraldine. I'm Philip Mayers, and I'm a bit of a ringy. I'm from the Sussman family, and my closest relative here would be Natalie. And I don't think I've seen Natalie since my bar mitzvah. And that would be 60 years ago. So my mother was Sheila Sussman. My late grandfather was Philip Sussman. So I'm from that side. And I haven't visited Kimberley since I was a child. My mother died young. She was about 50. And so I didn't go back on my own. And my main visits to Kimberley were when we were driving to Cape Town. We would sleep over there. My mother filled me in on a lot of the family history, but as time goes by and as people tell stories, sometimes I only had half a page. And Geraldine, you've been absolutely wonderful connecting me with people, connecting me with Natalie, and filling out the rest of those pages. In Melbourne, I see Jeff Sussman and Colin Sussman, and I've been in Melbourne, my wife and I have been here for 33 years, and I did meet Marvin and Lois once. You were introduced to us by Franklin Merrill Sutskin. They've both passed on. And also I do have a connection that Brad Klein is a Freemason with me. And I'm not sure whether Brad is the son of Louis or Melvin. So I do have a connection, and I love hearing from you. Really, Geraldine, it's marvelous, and it keeps me alive. And I've given copies of all the reports and all my notes to my children so that they will remember Kimberley as fondly as I do. And what can I say? Thank you, everybody, for having me. And I've just loved listening to your stories, because many of you were only names to me, and now you've all come to life. So thanks.
Thanks, Philip. And Philip has given us the most amazing stories of his grandparents, who were Philip Sussman and Gussie Sussman, who I've never heard of, and they were just absolutely stunning. So go to the website and have a look at their stories. Glenn Kirshner, where are you? Glenn, tell us about yourself.
My connections with Kimberley go back to my grandparents, Harry and Esther Nogged. I can't remember when my grandparents went to live there, but in 1946, there was this tragedy in our family when my uncle Butti Nogged was killed in an aeroplane crash. I think it was with somebody Goldman, but I'm sure Geraldine can correct me if I'm wrong. And my grandparents went to live there, and I remember when they first lived in Carrington Road, and as a child, I used to hear the owls hooting in the veld across the road. Then they moved to Atlas Street, and then in their old age, they moved into a little flat in Chapel Street. And I used most of my winter holidays I spent in Kimberley, and my memories of Kimberley are ones of great happiness and being with them. My contemporaries that I do remember were Milton Geller, who I know is a doctor, and somebody mentioned Stella Levinson. Well, they lived opposite my grandparents in Atlas Street, and now knew Pam Levinson. People I remember was Cecil Sussman, because he was a friend of my Auntie Rhoda, and she was a dietitian at the Kimberley Hospital for a few years. The Sussman butchery was a godsend to our family, because my grandfather did a lot of traveling. He flew from Kimberley to Johannesburg, and then he flew from Kimberley to Cape Town. And he always carried a little suitcase with his personal effects, but he had a big suitcase with all the meat that he took from the Sussman butchery to his children in Cape Town and in Johannesburg. So one always waited eagerly for Opa's arrival with all the steaks and salots and bolognas, etc., from the Sussman butchery. The other thing I do remember about Kimberley was going to John Orr's and my grandmother fitting me out with clothing, and she bought me a winter gown when I was about 12, which still fitted me when I was 23. She always said, "You'll grow into it, Mark Kent." And as Geraldine knows, I had recollections of the family having tea at the Savoy Hotel with Fanny Cohen. I remember the names like Tucker, and I remember the names of Brown, and I remember Ethel Apter. I'm not sure how she's connected to Sylvia, but she was a great friend of my aunt. And as I say, and the last time we were in Kimberley was in 1995. We were celebrating our silver wedding anniversary, and we decided we'd take our 2 children with us and do a tour of South Africa. And we stopped over in Kimberley, and I went to the cemetery to visit my grandfather's grave. And it was just, and we went to the big hole, of course, and it was just lovely being there. And on a lighter note, my grandmother said, but when she dies, she doesn't want to be buried next to my grandfather. So my grandmother's, because my grandfather would wake her up during the night to make him tea. So my grandmother's buried in Johannesburg and my grandfather in Kimberley. And Geraldine, I can only tell you, it is so wonderful to have the opportunity to have these memories brought back. It's very emotional for me. Thank you.
Well, thank you and all of you to do that. I see that I've probably only got Louis Klein, but I'd like to bring Eli Rabinovitz in at this stage, because Eli, here you've been able to actually see some of the Kimberley people that you've been posting about all the time. So won't you unmute and say something to us? It will be really nice.
So the good news is that I sound just like the rest of you. Okay. Can you? I can't see myself. Okay, you can hear me. Okay, just quickly about myself and just a few comments about what I see today. But the first thing I have to say is Geraldine has been the most amazing partner. Okay, I don't know if it's a partnership or not. I think she drives a hard bargain every time we do any kind of work together, but we've worked very well together under trying circumstances, because you must remember that Jewish Gen is an American organization, and Kimberley doesn't mean too much to them. So we've really driven this hard. I do 88 Kehillah links, 88, of which Kimberley's one, but by far the best one, thanks to Geraldine. And it's very, very important that you all understand that Kimberley is also connected to other towns. So Stephanie, for example, said she was from Oudtshoorn. So I do the Kehillah link for Oudtshoorn, and Oudtshoorn has a very rich history. And what I'm thinking of, basically, I live in Perth, by the way. So hi, Bev, is it? My wife knows you. I'm here listening to people talking about a town, of which how many of the people live in Kimberley? Is it just one couple that's on this? Okay, one couple. And the rest of us are in Australia, Boston, wherever you're in London. It reminds me of Lithuania, of the Litvaks. And you know that 95% of South African Jews were Litvaks who came to South Africa to come to a different world, okay? And now, unfortunately, most of us, almost all of us, live in a different world again. And what you and I, Geraldine, and what you, Geraldine, have done has been to paint a picture of a life that was very rich, okay? Not because of the diamonds, but because of the community that was Kimberley. And it's fantastic that we can maintain it and that we can tell the world. And we should be taking this and doing it with other towns as well. So any of you who live in Melbourne, any of you that live in Sydney or wherever you live, if you've got something to say about your town that you live in as well right now, you're welcome to share it with me. But here we're just talking about Kimberley. I think also that you all had great teachers at whatever schools you went to, because you articulate very well. I think the stories that I've heard tonight and that I've obviously read and uploaded have been absolutely amazing. And I think that is very important. Geraldine obviously has got the skills to draw it out of you guys. And this is what we're desperate to do with people around the traps. Springs is another example that we're trying to get people out of Springs to get off their butts and to write stories, okay? So you're all from Kimberley, you've done great. You're all somewhere else now, except for the couple in Kimberley. I mean, I've met people I ran the Memories of Muizenberg exhibition in Australia. I brought it from Saul Isroff, who lives in London, okay? And the amazing thing is I met a woman, Monica Gluckman Harris, okay? I don't know how many of you know her, but she's in Melbourne. She's 90 something and the most amazing character. But she was also connected very strongly with Muizenberg. So that's why you all have to remember that while Kimberley is Kimberley, there are other towns that you can contribute as well. I'm doing a bit of a plug. I just wanted to say as well that what is so important here is connections. And you've done it in a brilliant way, Geraldine, okay? There's not a plug for you, but you've done it in a good way. And I think that at our stages in life, and we're all getting a little bit older, I'm 68, is that we really need to encourage our children and grandchildren to get on this bandwagon, okay? Because it is very, very important that if we don't connect with our shtetl of Kimberley, and it's not my shtetl, I've been there, but if you don't get your children and grandkids, it's going to, in a way, disappear. That is the fear of all of us, okay? And right now in the COVID world, we're not traveling very much. So I think this Zoom meeting tonight has been an amazing opportunity to hear people speak. I hope we can have the video available to do something with, because I think it is absolutely rich and rewarding. Okay, you can see I'm hyped up. And that's the end of me. So I live in Perth. You can find me. I hope we can just, you can find me. If you can't find me, well, then you've got a problem.
Okay, well, look, thanks, Eli. And Eli is just amazing, because without Eli, I couldn't have started. So, you know, it was only when Saul Isroff introduced me to Eli that, and then he came through London. And I sat him down and we worked together all night saying, this is how we'd like the site to be. And then he went home and did it. So fantastic, Eli. We're all most grateful to you. It's fantastic. Now, what I wanted to say something to Shirley and David, but I can't remember what it is at the moment. So let me just bring Louis Klein in, if you're there, Louis, because we'd love to hear from you.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Sorry about your brother. We're all very send condolences.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. We're still going through the trauma of losing him. I don't know if there's much more than I could add to what Jen said and what Melvin said. Just a few little things about Kimberley that I remember was when I had my bar mitzvah in 1968, I think there was only standing room for people because they used to get soldiers from the Skoblos every Friday night, and we used to host together with lots of Jewish families in Kimberley. Used to host soldiers on Friday nights. And even now when Bentley passed away, we had messages from guys that were soldiers in the army that came to us every Shabbat. And they remembered our family fondly from those years. We haven't had contact with some of them. I had a note from a guy in Dallas, Texas, wishing us long life. My late father was very involved, as Melvin said, in the Chevra Kadisha, but he was also a big Zionist. He was on the executive of the South African Zionist Council from Kimberley. And in 1967 or 68, he was invited by Golda Meir to a human needs conference. There were 6 South Africans chosen, and a couple of, there were people chosen from every country around the world Jewish leaders. We still have the letters from Golda Meir inviting him to this conference. And I remember he passed away in 1971, and out of respect to him and for the work that he did for the community, they drove past the shul and the doors of the shul were open and the hearse stopped outside the shul in respect to him. The rest, I think Melvin and Jen have filled you in on. Just want to add that Roy Lipsitz, Jen's husband, also served on the Chevra Kadisha together with me. I've been living in Melbourne since 1994. We love it in Melbourne. We love it so much that our son went to live in America. He lives in Dallas, and he's got a beautiful little boy. And unfortunately, because of COVID, we haven't been able to see him, but we pray that please God will get there. and our daughter lives here with 2 kids at the moment. Every time we have a lockup, they move in with us, which is wonderful. I was involved with Harbonim, very involved, doing Hadrocha in Kimberley, and I was the head of Harbonim, and we used to take, I don't know, in those days, maybe 30 kids to Machane, and I continued doing my Hadrocha when I went to live in Cape Town. The last time I was in Kimberley was about 6 years ago, and we did a tour. It was Purim, and Barney said that we must come straight from the airport to the shul to listen to the reading of the Megillah. But what happened was South African Airways was running about 2 hours late. So we got there, it was all done, but they were still at the shul, and we managed to catch up with them all and have a look around the shul. And then we went out for dinner with Barney and Maud after that. I think you're doing a magnificent job, Geraldine. And although we haven't contributed much to your newsletters, we've been reading them. So thank you.
That's the first thing. So that's very good. Thank you, Louis. That's very nice. I'll just tell you, when the last time I went to Kimberley, we drove past the shul on Friday night. The doors were open, the lights were on, there was singing coming out. We were so shocked. So we stopped the car, we rushed inside. The shul was full. I couldn't believe it. And then eventually, the 1 or 2 people who recognized us came and said, "You're having 4 bar mitzvahs." 4 bar mitzvahs? You've got no children in Kimberley? No, they've got, this one's having his 2nd bar mitzvah, and this one has never had a bar mitzvah before, and this one is this, and we're having, and this was the idea of these young doctor rabbis, yeah? And it was the most wonderful occasion, followed by a dinner in the communal hall, where we remembered all these Yom Kippur dances and everything. So it was fantastic to be there. We were invited to join, could even make a little speech and say something from London. So, you know, that was an amazing opportunity. But I always felt, why didn't you tell all your expats you were going to do this? You know, you would have had greetings from them, or some of them may have come. You know, you never consider that we've got anything to do with Kimberley. So just keep, you know, send me some information that I'll put in the newsletter, whatever. What I wanted to say, David, was I have recorded this session. Would you like me to upload it onto the Shul, Kimberley Shul, where a Facebook page?
I think that would be ideal.
Yeah?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, well, somebody then needs to tell me how to do that, either before or after this. Now, thank you, because I think it would be nice to put it there and people would perhaps enjoy that. So does anybody want to come back and comment on anything they've heard, or say something? Leon, do you want to?
Yeah, Louis, you mentioned that you were in Harbonim and you were in charge of the movement. I wrote an article, it's on the Hiller Links, about the Harbonim movement. And unfortunately, I only went as far as Pamela Hotz because she took over from me. And we were trying to piece together, you know, Geraldine did a bit before, you know, so we're trying to patch together what happened after Pamela Hotz took over. If you've got any information, you know, would you kindly send it to me so that we can perhaps update that article?
Louis, that would be great. If you do you want to.
Could you, Louis? Yeah.
Yes. So, I don't know when Harbonim ceased to exist in Kimberley, but there were people after me, like Rael Klein and Jeffrey Klein, I think, that used to do Hadrocha. I could speak to them and see when it ceased to exist, and then work back. But it was quite a strong movement, Kimberley, and I can add that most of my friends that I have around the world and even in Melbourne are people that I met through the Haboni movement.
Yeah, just write about your time in Habonim and Kimberley. That would be what Leon wants to add to this article. Yeah, that would
Leon,
be
I can tell you the best part of my Haboni was going to Machane.
absolutely, absolutely, yeah.
Leachy's Bay or Honors?
Right. Anybody else want to come in and say something before we close?
Yeah, it's Dan. Hi there. I'd like to say hello to Daphne. I don't think you were on when I mentioned it's Stan Eberlin, and I'm sure you were a friend of my sister Dorina. And to Trevor and Daphne, I have very fond memories of my parents' friendship with Abe and Violet. So just a memory that pops up once we're all speaking to each other. And I've enjoyed this. I've enjoyed this enormously, and I have been very remiss in not ever sending anything into the newsletter, but this has been a wonderful spur for me to do so in future. So thanks again especially to Geraldine, and fond memories and greetings to you all.
Thank you.
Geraldine, I just have a quick question for somebody I sent a chat message to. That's Melvin Klein and Stephanie in Melbourne. Can you hear me? I sent you a message because I want to know what Stephanie's maiden name is because she's from Oudtshoorn. Yes? Can you hear me?
Yes. Stephanie.
Oh,
Yes.
hi, Ela. My maiden name was Marcus with a K.
Okay, so
Even
Marcus.
I still
Okay.
have family in Oudtshoorn.
Okay, so is that Teresa Marcus's?
Yes, Larry's my brother.
Okay, so Teresa, so Renisha and my wife are best friends. Okay, and also Hinda. I don't know what her Hinda Cecil.
Heather, yeah.
Heather, yeah.
Yeah, I'm
We call
very
her
friendly with Heather.
Yeah.
Daphne Gillis would know Heather Cohen, so she was. So yeah, I spoke to her on Friday. Yeah.
Okay,
So write
cool.
your story and send it to Eli for Oudtshoorn.
I will. Thank you.
Okay, lovely.
Join the queue.
All right. So if I may, next time I'll write a newsletter about myself. So you'll let you know about if I may. Okay, well, thank you.
Geraldine, just one last comment. You know, I'm really concerned about the Kimberley Shul because, you know, my family was so intimately involved, but, you know, particularly with the Grenna Shul, my grandfather. And, it, you know, I would hate to see that shul go the same way as what happened to the Grenna Shul. I really feel that we need to do something to preserve the building, to preserve it for future generations, you know, that the Jewish people around the world can identify that Jewish people lived in Kimberley and their contribution to Kimberley, and that should stand as a monument for, you know, for future generations. It disturbs me what's happening with many of the memorials. I believe they're ripping down the stenotaph. They've pulled down the copper platings. They're pulling down the bricks. If nobody is going to look after that building, that's exactly what's going to happen. And, you know, I would appeal to David, who's the only Kimberley representative, to do all they can to preserve that building. I mean, you know, if I could, you know, I would fly down to South Africa, but, you know, it's a bit difficult in today's times and living in Canada. You know, I would really appreciate if we could preserve that building.
Without getting into the politics, Leon, so what role has Silverhaft in all of this? Effective role, because, you know, you can see him from different points of view.
Yeah, I don't know, you know, what his involvement is on let's say on a daily basis, or he probably comes to Kimberley to, you know, to bring Judaism and, you know, prayer to Tefillah to Kimberley. I don't know if he's got the power, to do much about preserving the shul. It's the responsibility of the South African Jewish Board to look after that building. If it's going to need donations from the Jewish community, we need to do that. But now that building, the most beautiful shul, I reckon, in the world, to be, you go to wreck and ruin, it would destroy the memories of how the Jewish community lived in Kimberley.
Okay, so my answer to that is, in places like Lithuania, obviously there are a lot of Jewish people around the world. So I've been to reunions in Bergei, which was a massive reunion, and South African ex-Litvak South Africans came from all over and spent a lot of money not even restoring, building something new, a memorial. So my suggestion is that maybe Geraldine, I can talk about it, is talk to people like Gavin Morris at the Jewish Museum in Cape Town, who would have good connections, also with Adam Mendelsohn at UCT, right? And also people like Saul Isroff, because you've got to work with people that are going to do something about it.
Right,
okay.
Right.
And the problem often, and that's why I refer to Silberhaft, is the problem often is that their angle is different. And you know what? He's been known to sell shuls off, okay? So we don't want that to happen. I mean, you don't want that to happen. So I think you need to, if you want to be a bit of a driving force in it, it has been happening in places like Lithuania. And I think that it should happen in South Africa. It's just a matter of finding the right kind of people. And, there are also people like the Holocaust museums, like Talia Nates in Johannesburg, who are very proactive about a lot of things that they do. And I'm sure these people would have a lot of connections. I mean, she used to have a connection with Elliot Osrin, who passed away. They were funding her. Somebody else must be funding her now, okay, because she's, every 5 minutes doing this and that. So I think you need to be proactive about it and draw people into your little group of activists. You can speak to maybe, I laugh, but a guy like Grant Gottschen, who is the extreme activist of activists. I don't know if you know what he does, but he tackles Lithuania all the time and what he wants to get out of them, which is an admission of what they did to the Jews, okay? So I think in a way, you've got to find an activist that will draw people into this thing without pissing them off, but draw them in. And maybe our friends in Melbourne, they're sitting there tight, they can't do anything, they're locked in their homes. Maybe we can get them all to do something, to help as well. Because I think Australian ex-Litvak South African Jews are very well placed to help people, and you Canadians, so same thing. Look at Toronto, look at Thornhill, how many South Africans are there? Maybe draw them in. Maybe Geraldine can help with a Zoom meeting for the Canadians in Thornhill, okay, or Markham, or whatever you want to call them, because that is a captive audience, and maybe they can put something together, because everything at the end comes back to money, doesn't it?
Right, it's all a question of money, but also who is going to be responsible for administering and looking after the building. That it's got to be somebody that's local. So we've got to identify that institution or person who's going to be prepared to take responsibility for the building.
Because that's a problem of South Africa, unfortunately. Right?
And that's the problem.
Let
we
David.
need to find a kosher goy, who will help us, if there's such a person.
Let David Allen. David?
Yeah, no, what I was going to say was that I'm a member of the board of the McGregor Museum. And one of the major problems is we've been, for instance, the old John Orr's house, which was originally Bonus's house, and several other places have been given to the museum to look after. But when the funds are not available to it, the museum is supported by the local government, and all they do is cut our funds every year. They give us less and less and less. So should we wish to turn the synagogue, the shul, into a museum, which probably is the best use for it, you've got to have the funds to maintain it, because without that, there's no ability to do these things. It's got to have something behind it in addition. The mere handing it over and asking them to take it over doesn't help. As I say, we have various buildings in town that have already been donated to the museum, and without having extra funds, there's nothing we can do. And unfortunately, people keep mentioning De Beers, but De Beers have pulled out of town completely. So they no longer have any concern with what's going on in Kimberley, other than supporting the Big Hull Museum to a certain extent.
So if I can just answer to that, because this is an area I'm more involved in, is that in Lithuania, in a place called Shadova, a very fancy museum is being built. Now, there's a back man and there's a front man. The front man actually has come to South Africa to interview Litvaks all over the place. His name's Sergei Kanovich, okay? And they're building a world-class museum there. There's no reason why they can't take over the shul, these same people who are very moneyed. You just got to just connect with them, or I'm happy to help introduce, because I think these people that I'm talking about are actually ex-South Africans and ex-Litvaks. You know, that's the root. You know, no matter where we live now today, whether I live in Australia or live in Canada, whatever, you're very unusual because you're living in the town. But basically, you need to network with those people. And I think Geraldine and Saul in London can help with that as well. Thank you.
I mean, would you like, David and Shirley, to just set up a little group? Let's not call it anything stronger than a group of interested people that you can start talking to, and it could be Eli and Leon Chonnen and anybody else who'd like to volunteer from the expats to just sit down with you and have conversations. Would you welcome that or not?
I think that's a very good idea. And as I say, and the fact that Barney is the chairman of the small communities, with a very, very strong relationship with Moshe Silboft, who seems to regard Kimberley as one of the main survivors of the small communities. So there is an interest, and possibly that would be, to carry that further, would be the best plan that we could do at this current stage. And you are correct that maybe we must start planning now.
Let me just say that Moshe and our rabbi in Thornhill have exchanged books and are very close to one another. And, you know, the fact that our community here is probably 90% South African, with only, I think, 3 Kimberley people in it. But needless to say, we could really convince our community to try and support the Kimberley Shul in some way or other. They won't obviously take the burden on themselves, but they will participate. I'm sure they will participate. And I can do that, you know, with our rabbi. The only problem is at the moment is with COVID, you know, we're all in lockdown, and I think this program can only really start once we've all been injected. But unfortunately in Canada, nobody's sending us any vaccines. The Americans don't want to give us, the Europeans don't want to give us, I don't know when, you know, we'll
get them from Russia.
Well, they try to get it from China, you know. So I don't know if China was going to send us poison or a vaccine, but then...
Anyway, Leon, I think that because of COVID, we have the wonderful opportunity where David and Barney could sit down with half a dozen of the expats who've got ideas or have had experience in this sort of thing, and just talk and see where that will lead to. And if Alan, David, and Shirley are happy to do this, we can help you to set it up.
You know, we've got Bernard Benjamin here, so, and Neil Otis, who's, you know, they're here. So those are the only Kimberley people, you know, who may help, you know, with this program and with this project. So, you know, I'm happy to lead this this Toronto, you know, section of it, and I'm sure that there are people in Australia that will be able to help us, and I'm sure that there's people in London that could also, you know, join in the program. If it's finance, we can do it. There's no question about it. We can find it. We have to preserve this building, really. I feel I have to do it for my grandparents, you know, and for all, you know, the people who came to South Africa, who landed up in Kimberley and who developed that community. We have a responsibility, at least just to preserve the building and to preserve the cemetery. Those are two things that we as expats have got a responsibility to do.
But I want to say, Leon, you're absolutely right, but we do appreciate that those in Kimberley take this really seriously and have put their hearts and souls and their money and their time into doing that. What we're looking at, David and Shirley, is, you know, the future. We're not looking, we absolutely solidly behind those in Kimberley who are doing this. But we'd like to reach out our hand, if you want to take it, to help you, together with you, see how you can find the best solution.
There are organizations in Europe that restore synagogues.
Okay, I want to hear from David and Shirley.
Okay.
Yeah, what do you?
That's okay.
No, that's very, very, you know, this has been done before. This, you know, you're not in a situation that hasn't happened before. It's happened millions of times. So we can perhaps try and draw on the experiences of the most successful. And that's where Eli has got a lot of contacts that can help. Yeah.
Yep. I've said what I've had to say.
So David and Shirley, what do you say?
As I say, I shall definitely get together with Barney and we'll have a discussion. Barry and Trevor, and see what we can put together a plan for the future and start something, get something going immediately.
And would you like to have a little group of expats to have as a sounding board?
Well, I think once we've got, we must first draw a plan of it, and then invite others to join to see what we can do. As I say, as you mentioned, we try and maintain the cemeteries. It's a major problem.
The
shul. We have I don't know if people are aware of the fact that in order for us to maintain the shul at the moment, we have sublet the old communal hall. The communal hall is actually used by another religious organization as their meeting point. But that brings us in sufficient income just to maintain, to pay the electricity bills and things like that for the shul at the moment. And knowing that there's somebody using the hall, it keeps it secure, because as Leon has just mentioned, as they've said, anything left in Kimberley is immediately vandalized. So you cannot afford to leave things vacant.
Yeah.
I mean, whenever we have security at the cemetery, the one cemetery we've now had to abandon completely, almost completely, because we have a security guard there. And the second one, the main one, Green Street cemetery, we have that being maintained. We pay a gardening service to maintain it regularly. We have a security guard on duty there regularly.
And they vandalize
but they vandalize it whenever during the day. I mean, the Ohel at the old, we bricked up completely the one in Stead Street, because it was being used for all sorts of nefarious things, as a drug den and as a semi-brothel, all sorts of things. So we bricked it up completely. We've left the building, but we bricked it up. And we've put a electronic security fence around it in an attempt to keep it open. So they make a hole through the brick wall underneath, and we have to close that up again. You know, it is a major problem, just ongoing, because unfortunately that is what's happening in Kimberley. Because
a security firm at the shul.
Yeah.
Look, we appreciate all these things, but what I'm suggesting is, that you have a meeting and a conversation before you make plans, because what you hear from the people who are living in Canada and Australia, you know, you may say, well, you're not in Kimberley, it's nothing to do with you. What you hear from them may help your plans. So I would say, let's have a meeting sooner rather than later. You know, maybe in a fortnight's time, you know, for those who are interested to talk about the future with no, you know, obviously it's not our business, but it is our business, if you know what I mean. We don't want to be putting any pressure onto the Kimberley people, because you're doing a wonderful job and we appreciate it, but we want to help. Does that make sense? They've disappeared. Does it make sense to you, to those of you who are left? Oh, yeah, you are. Does that make sense? Yeah? Anyway, okay. I will make a suggestion of a meeting in a couple of weeks' time. Is this time suitable for you? Perhaps Barney can join, and all the people from Kimberley. I mean, we want to talk to you. You keep yourself very...
I'm surprised Barney isn't on now. I really thought he would be the first one on. I hope he's all right.
How is Barney, by the way? Because I believe he wasn't well.
He's a lot better, but not 100%.
See, that's another worry. Another worry.
And we also can't make terribly long-term plans, because David is going to be 87 soon, and I'm 84. So how long a term plan can we make to keep going?
Well, let's meet in a fortnight then. Same time, same place, okay? And we'll extend an invitation just to those who are willing to, with respect to the Kimberley people, have a conversation about possibilities for the future. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Great. Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to say thank you. Next week, we're doing a meeting at 6 o'clock UK time, which we hope is more suitable for those who are living in California. But anybody is welcome to listen. I'll try and find a way to upload this onto the Kimberley Shul website, not website, the Facebook page, and so that you can draw on that and join us if you can next week. And then the week after, we'll have this meeting about where we go from here for the Kimberley Shul that we all know and love. So thank you very much, and I'm going to close the meeting room now. Thanks for coming, and I hope you've been happy to have your say.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.